All right, folks, we are back from Boston, Massachusetts, PAX East. This is Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh, and joined as always, it is
Matty Juice, and I'm happy to be back from PAX, but I'm sad that it's over, Tommy, because it was a great time.
It really was. This was a especially good year because, well, we're going to get into all kinds of things, why it was such a good year. But first off, we normally used to do like Friday and Saturday, right? And, last year, I think mean, we kind of were just like, Saturday's so busy. And we were going around to different booths and we're like, they'd be like, come back on Sunday. And we were like, we're not going to be here Sunday. So we were just like, let's do Sunday and Friday instead. And I think that was the play because we got to hang out in Boston, even though it was raining. We're going to talk about that, but it was a good time. But we have a great show for you. We're just going to talk about PAX, some of the games we love, some of the games that you all should be hyped about because we're pretty hyped about it. And just answer some questions. And we're less than 24 hours home from PAX. And I'm not going to lie. I'm beat, but beat in a good way. So how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, doing good. We got home. I got home like 12:45 in the morning last night, so try to sleep in. It's hard to do that. We did a good job of that at the hotel, though. We'll talk about that. We'll kind of go through, the whole thing. But yeah, I'm doing good. A lot of great games at PAX this year, and I feel like I say that every year, but like this year in particular, I felt like the indies were like really high quality. Like there were so many we kind of came across that we were like, this is awesome. And definitely a lot on the buy list. But yeah, it was a good time. It sucked that it rained. Obviously you want that weather to be better. Luckily, we'll talk about this later, but luckily PAX East next year is in May for I think the first time ever. So that should hopefully be better with the weather there. But other than that, let's get into it, Tommy. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. We don't really have much news because, the biggest news is PAX East is in May next year, and that's more personal news for us because, it's PAX happens every year. This is more like, scheduling might be easier, or whatever.
Yeah.
But the biggest news is, though, Maddie, everybody knows this, and especially they're going to know this when we get to the listener questions. We have a Discord that you can find in the show notes, the Fresh Juice Discord, where all the juice heads hang out, which is, pretty awesome, and it's a great place to hang out. So check that out. Also, while you're at it, hit the sub button or whatever, subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Give us a rating. Who cares? It helps.
It really does.
We're an indie game podcast, right?
Yeah.
So it's the best way that you can just support us without giving anything except one click of a button. It's amazing. But
yeah,
PAX was a blast, and we played some great games. Let's talk about some of our favorites. Right off the bat, I want to talk about Astro Duel 2. This is a game.
Yeah.
This is a game that it surprised the heck out of us because we didn't know anything about Astro Duel 1, let's say. But Astro Duel 2, and if you go on our TikTok or whatever, you'll see us actually interview, like briefly, just ask a few questions to the main dev, and who was a solo dev until basically the last 3 years of development, I think, and then he brought on everybody else. He was working on this game for like 10 years. And this is a multiplayer game that is Super Smash Bros. Meets Asteroids. That's how they pitch it, and that is how it plays. And gosh, there is something about this game that was so much fun. There's so much unique things going on. You're a little character. You're just like a little pixel sprite running around. You have a sword that you attack while you're in regular gravity, and then when you go into like zero gravity, you transform into your ship, which is a whole new level of combat. You're doing like asteroids based movement, but each ship has a different kind of attack, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know, like this game was just so much fun. We sat down like multiple times, like maybe 10 times to play this game at the convention. and then also bought the game on Switch to play it at the hotel, which we played till like 3 a.m. the Friday night. This was just a real home run for us. Comes out, no, it's out now. It came out in the beginning of the month. So, we can't recommend it enough. I mean, if we had reviewed it, it would certainly get a certified fresh juice. I would have to imagine. But what were your thoughts on Astro Duel 2?
Yeah, no, like everything you said, I mean, it's just really, there's always that game every year, right? Like that kind of party game that we end up finding that we're like, this is, we're going to spend a lot of time at this booth. We'll probably end up buying the game. But I really feel like Astro Duel, at least compared to the last few years at PAX, has like ascended above like a lot of the games that we've been playing. I was just playing it before recording this show, and I was having a blast. I was playing solo with bots, and I was still having a great time. It's such a cool concept, like Tommy mentioned. It's Smash Bros. And Asteroids put together. Your characters kind of look like Norps in a way. They're kind of these little like, super like, not a lot of detail for the characters. It's just kind of these little pixel sprites. And you kind of have this, the whole arena has like a half kind of space or water area. That's where you're using your ships. And then there's another area when you go into it, there's kind of a gravity field where you jump out of your ship, and your pilot is then, like Tom mentioned, using the sword or using weapons you pick up. So it's this nice hybrid of like genres in a way. And it works really well. And also the fact that it's Astro Duel 2, I feel like a lot of the times at PAX, like I could be a little hesitant to play like a sequel to a game that I've never even heard of before, because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be kind of behind the curve here. Like I don't even know, I don't have like any nostalgia for it. But even talking with the devs, they said that Astro Duel came out like 10 years ago. So I imagine that some of the people on the team have probably never really even played the original Astro Duel before being hired to work on Astro Duel 2. Geez, but it's really just a fantastic game. You have a few different ship options, which is cool. There's no more than 3 ships in the game currently. There's a ship that I love using called, it's got a kind of like a reflector ability, so it'll shoot bullets back at other ships. That's always a lot of fun. There's another ship I know Tommy likes to use, the drill, that is kind of a melee-based ship that kind of has a dash and a drill, that can, it can penetrate through different obstacles, things like that. And then there's another ship that we also went with our cousin Danny Tugboats, and he plays as the what is it called? It's like the teleporting ship. It's like a big heavy ship with a lot of ammo. I forget the name. So we were all playing different ones, which was a lot of fun. But it was especially fun when we got back to PAX on Sunday and we played again, and we had been playing the previous night, because we started out pretty hot, in that first match. And then all of a sudden, like the other people we were playing with, I guess one of them realized that the other people, because there's 6 people that you can play with, were not that good. So he started kind of farming those kills a little bit. But it's just a really fantastic game. And honestly, it's out on Steam and Switch right now. It's $20. I was kind of, in between which version do I buy? Because the Steam version, there's no online play for this game, but the Steam version has the Steam Play Together, or whatever it's called, that allows you to essentially have online capabilities for a local multiplayer game. But the Switch version doesn't have that. So I was like kind of going in between, because I'd love to do like a tournament in the Juiceheads Discord for Astro Duel. But I ended up buying the Switch version, easier to play downstairs. I'll probably end up buying the Steam version. But if any of the Juiceheads out there end up picking this up, definitely drop it in the Discord. Let us know, because we can definitely do a tournament or something at some point. And it would just be a blast. But yeah, I had a great time with Astro Duel 2, and I'm looking forward to Astro Duel 3 whenever that comes out.
Another 10 years.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, you bring up a great point about if anybody wants to play in the Discord, that would be really sweet. Even if it's just like a game night, we're just like jamming games. Like that would be a lot of fun. I mean, that goes for any of the games that we enjoy and want to play. Or if there's a game that you're just like, hey, this is like a free to play game, I'm not doing anything, pop in the Discord, tell us, we'll jam some games. We like games. We're gamers, but
Yeah.
yeah, Astro Duel was cool, and the devs couldn't have been nicer. You know, they had their whole team there, which is not large, right? So it was a solo dev who brought on other people to kind of really make sure the game kind of was smoothed out for release. And I'm talking to one guy while we're in line. I'm blanking on his name, unfortunately, but I'm like, yeah, so like, are you a dev? And he's like, no, I did all the music. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like the fact that the music, the composer was there just hanging at the booth and he was playing, which was awesome. And I'm like, oh, have you done anything else that maybe I know? It's like, did you get the play date? Which I have got the play date. He's like, oh, I did a couple of the launch titles on play date. I was like, no way. That's so freaking cool. So that's just like the kind of cool stuff you get at PAX, and especially like, as PAX, and we'll talk about it probably, PAX seems to be becoming less AAA focused for sure, and a little bit more indie focused. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing, not a bad thing. It just is what it is. And I think that I like that a lot more because you get a little bit more of those interactions. Now, what's another game you really enjoyed?
Yeah, another one that I thought was pretty cool is Fraymakers. So this is a game that is already out, I believe, in early access. And essentially, easiest way to put it is that it is Super Smash Brothers, but all indie game characters from different indie games. So currently in the game, I think they have like 5 or 6 characters they were mentioning. They got Commander Video, they have Octodad. Who else do they have? They
They
have
had the Watcher from Slay the Spire.
yes, the Watcher. And then they also have an assist system, which is really cool, where essentially you choose another indie character. I know they have like the Among Us guys in there as an example of an assist character. And as you're playing, typical kind of combat like you would expect in like Super Smash Brothers, you'll fill up a bar and then you can call in your assist character. So it's kind of a cool way to kind of like team up with other indie games as you're playing. But really, the home run for me with this game is the fact that it has something called Fray Tools, which is actually what the developers use to build stages, characters, and I think different modes, perhaps. And this is actually available if you purchase Fraymakers on Steam. You can get the Fray Tools as well, and you can build your own characters. You can build your own stages, and they already said they have about like 1,000 different assets in the Steam Workshop, and I think a few hundred of those are new characters. Because right after playing, right, they did a great job at this booth with like feedback as well. Right after playing, they had one of their team members would come up to you and he would just be like, okay, how did you enjoy the game? He had his little notepad, and then he would just say like, what other characters would you want in the game? And he had a list. He was very private about the list and anything, which I guess I understand. They've got a decent following, and there's probably a lot of people that are demanding certain indie characters to be in that game. But it's also really cool because he was just like, oh, or you can just create your own character. You can create Cuphead if you wanted to be in there or whatever it is. So I think that's something that people have been asking for with Super Smash for such a long time, right? Like how many conversations have we had about like adding Goku to Super Smash Brothers ever since it was like N64, right? Like, and now like Fraymakers is doing that. So I just think it has a lot of potential. This is actually one of the there's a lot of Super Smash clones out there. You got Multiverses, you got PlayStation All Stars, the Nickelodeon All Stars, or whatever that's called. But I feel like this one is poised to be like the most successful behind Smash, because there's that kind of growing, like you mentioned, the PAX is becoming more and more indie. So you're gonna get more and more indie fans at PAX. You're gonna have a bigger kind of market for indie games. So I think building up Fraymakers to include, hopefully eventually, like Super Smash Ultimate. Imagine like having 60 different indie characters you can have in your game. I think that is just has the most potential out of any of the other kind of Smash games, Smash-like games, if you want to call it that, that I've played. But what about you, Tom? What do you think of Fraymakers?
I mean, it's awesome. I'm a huge Smash player, and being able to just sit down, and it felt felt like I was just playing Smash. Obviously, it wasn't like fully polished. It's in early access. Like some of the characters aren't fully like developed. Like they have moves where they would become the sketch of
Yeah.
what that hero or what that character is, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, the potential here is immense, and it was cool to like. I played hundreds of hours of Slay the Spire to be able to play as the Watcher, and then the Silent is one of the assist characters, and then just being able to. I played Downwell. Downwell, I forget what the
Hmm.
heck the name of the character is, but the Downwell main character is a playable character, and it was so cool because it was like this felt like I was playing Downwell in a way, and that is really cool, and it feels like a game made for us, right? Because we talk about indie
Yeah.
games all the time. It's like now, like we get to kind of rack our brains, like, wow, Leica, how cool of a character would that be, right? Like a motorcycle character in the game. I mean, that would be so sweet. So,
Yeah.
the potential there was awesome. They did do a great job at the booth, and the feedback. Obviously, you know, we kept like trying to pry, like, oh, like what are some of your favorite games? And they're like, he's like, I can't tell you because then you're gonna assume we're gonna put it in the game or whatever. And he's just like, I'm like, fine, 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 fine. But
Yeah.
it is. But that is a sign of something that's kind of special, and that like people really care about when you have to start keeping your cards close to the vest, right? So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, a lot of potential there. It's tough, right? Like you're never gonna take down Smash as the game, but I think this is a great alternative, right? Like because when you look at like big IPs, right? Like Nintendo IPs and like even what Multiverses did and the Nickelodeon, Nintendo's gonna win that every
Yeah.
single time, right? That's people want to play as Mario, they want to play as Pokemon, they want to play as Fire Emblem characters, etc., etc., etc. But when you get into the indie IPs, you want to play the indies, like that's what it is. And if they kind of like not corner the market, but like are the place to go to play a Smash game, like Smash brawler type game with those characters, that's gonna be huge. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And another thing about Framemakers too, like we did an interview it's live on TikTok. Definitely check it out. It was we talked to Max over there, who I think is the lead dev, and he was great. He we asked him kind of what his favorite or what I guess what game would people be surprised to know that he loves? And obviously, when you're building a game like Framemakers, it's like you love so many games because that's why you built a game like this because you want all those different characters in there. But something else that I think he brought up that's really interesting is, he mentioned kind of a character that's in Framemakers that I guess doesn't get a lot of love is a character from this game called Rhythm Doctor, which
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of. And he said it's a rhythm based game. It's like a one button kind of game that has a kind of a narrative built into it. It's currently in early access on Steam, and I'm definitely going to check it out. But I also think Framemakers, it opens up the opportunity for more advertising for these other indie games. Like in that perfect example, like I had never heard of Rhythm Doctor. I've never seen Rhythm Doctor before, but when he mentioned that, I was like, oh, I'll definitely kind of look into that. I've never played Downwell before, as an example, but I did play as the character, and I was like, I didn't really understand how he worked, but I was like, he's a pretty cool character, though, and maybe I should check out Downwell. So I think it's also like, the benefits kind of go both ways, right? Like you add an indie game character to Framemakers. Obviously, you're going to get some more people that are interested in that specific character, but then that game that added that character also gets some kind of free advertising in a way of like, oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there that have never, played Slay the Spire, and now they're going to be more interested in it. They're going to go check it out. So I just think it's a really cool concept in that way as well. That's something, at least for me, like I've never really felt like that with Super Smash. I've never been like, oh, like this is a Bayonetta character. I'm gonna go try Bayonetta. Like I've never played Bayonetta, but it never made me want to play like another game. So I just thought that was fantastic as kind of like a side benefit of Frame Makers. But yeah, it's it's also I feel like a lot of these other competing Smash likes, Multiverses is like stuck on DC, right? Nickelodeon is stuck on Nickelodeon, PlayStation stuck on PlayStation. Indie's pretty vague, right? Like
Yeah.
it could be any console, it could be, any publisher, things like that. I'm sure there's some licensing things that need to happen, but I feel like it truly is like the kind of sidekick to Smash, or it could be end up being the sidekick to Smash of like, oh, let's hop on Frame Makers today instead of Smash and just play around. Plus, it's available on more consoles as well,
Hmm.
so that also helps it. But yeah, just a ton of potential with Frame Makers, and those guys were super nice. And that's the other thing, just like as a side note with PAX is, you know, fresh. We love the show. Obviously, we've been doing it for almost 6 months. We don't have a massive following by any means, but anytime we're talking to indie devs, they are just so interested in what we're doing. It just makes like I feel like us having interest in them makes them feel really good, and then them having interest in
Yeah.
us makes us feel really good.
Everybody's
So
winning.
yeah, everybody's winning. It's just like PAX is such like a cool place for that sort of stuff. So the more indies that are going to be there, if that's what it's going to end up being, like the better I think it's going to be for us, in the long run. But it's just a really cool experience for anyone who hasn't been. I definitely recommend going. If you're anywhere on the East Coast, we drove 5 hours to get there. Like it's not that bad. Getting there. Definitely recommend it, or even just going to like PAX West or PAX South. I think is the other one in
Yeah,
Texas.
PAX South, or if you're
Yeah,
down in the the PAC region, I think you can go to PAX Australia. The
yeah,
PAX is all over the place. So
yeah. And yeah, it's just a really magical place, for especially for indies. But I just want to point that out. Like the two devs we talked about so far, and the other ones that we mentioned, they're just so appreciative that like people are interested in their game at all. And it's just they absolutely deserve it, and we really just appreciate them having interest in us too. So if you're listening, which maybe they are right now, just want to say thank you
thank you.
for giving us the opportunity to interview you, talk about you, and play your game. It's been dope. But anyway, what's the next game, Tommy?
Uh,
What was your favorite?
One of
Another
all my
favorite.
favorite. I mean, some of my favorite. I mean, these are all like really tough contenders, but Throne of Bone is a game that I really took to. Right, the auto battler genre is still kind of like a in its infantile stage, I think, and will kind of continue to grow. It might end up being one of the next big things um, that's coming out there now. Throne of Bone is like a somewhat of a card game, auto battler roguelike. It is a roguelike, but talking to the dev and the artist, the main artist who was just awesome, gave a custom card to us, which is super.
Yeah.
He had like a bunch of different ones. He did had different designs on, which was like really really sweet. And
There it is.
there it is. Yeah, right. Like how sick is that?
Yeah, Ryan
For the
Barry.
people, yeah, for the people on YouTube, it's really really cool. Now, it the first thing that the first thing that really drew me to the game was the name Throne of Bone. Objectively awesome and hilarious, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm Throne of Boning all the time, dude. But the
Owning
game,
that throne.
yeah. But the like right on top, or like of the screen where you play, we're hey, listen, we're off the rails, but
Yeah.
and we're back on them. The Throne of Bone, and then you have this really cool skeletal kind of character standing or sitting up there on this throne. Obviously, Throne of Bone makes sense. I'm like, okay, that's cool. The art was like really, really cool. It's like kind of cartoonish, but like dark fantasy. Like it felt like it had mass appeal. Like it's something that like I would have gravitated to, or like towards, like even as like an 8-year-old. Like, oh, that looks really cool, and it's not too scary. Like one of those things. And
Yep.
and I'm like, oh, it's like a card game roguelike. Obviously, we talked about Baltro. I love Slay the Spire. I was like, I'm in. And then I saw it was an auto battler. And like, I played a few, and I don't love
Hmm.
all of them, but I did like some of them. I'm like, well, I'm willing to play this. And we talked to them, and it was actually so busy. Not like busy, but like they had someone on there all the time that was kind of tough to get on the game. And they did a really, really cool thing. The coolest thing I saw someone do at the like maybe ever at PAX. And like, they have like high score things all the time, right? Like, here, beat the high score of the weekend. In this game, you're like buying these cards that are minions that you use in the game that are auto battling for you, and you go through 3 levels, and then at the end you get the option to play the PAX East champion. Whoever had the best deck in the beginning has their deck that you play against. You just play one round against them. If you win, you become the PAX East champion. You write your name on it, and then anybody else who plays the demo, when they get to that point, they say, "Do you want to play the PAX East champion?" They play that person, which was so cool. And I saw the person who who made the PAX East champion before I played, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I could build a deck that could beat that." And I thought I had something. Like, mind you, it was the first time I played, but that being said, they were really good, obviously, and I got totally smashed. But that was so cool, and the game is pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of cool mechanics. Now, talking to the dev, he came from Magic the Gathering Arena. He worked on it for like 10 years, I think, out in Seattle, and then left that and got into the indie world. Love to see that. We're going to see a lot of that with all the layoffs, I imagine,
Yep.
which is great for indie games. And, you know, it showed. I mean, I played a lot of Magic Arena back in the day before I switched over to Flesh and Blood. And he certainly had a knack for the card game kind of aesthetic that makes sense in the UI, right? And it really felt clean. And the mechanics were good. And I was interested to play more of it. Comes out, I think, on early access April 8th. So
Yep.
I'll probably just download that and like kind of jam it, like see how early access goes, and would love to, possibly review it then, or even when it comes out in 1.0. But it was a cool game. You didn't get to play it, but you did watch a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't get a chance to play it, like you said. It was the play sessions were a bit long because there was also that like PAX East sort of champion segment that you could go into. But yeah, it really looked fantastic. And actually, the art reminded me of like West of Dead kind of,
Yep.
which is always cool to me. It's kind of like that cartoony with like really strong like outlines around things and kind of vibrant colors in certain areas, but also a lot of like monotone colors. So I really enjoyed the art style for it. But yeah, like I don't fully understand like the mechanics of it just because I didn't get a chance to play it. But it did look fantastic. It had a good amount of hype around it. The name obviously is fantastic, and also just the fact that like it's coming from someone who has been working like a decade on MTG Arena, you know, it's a lot of potential there for it to actually be good. He cares a lot. I think his name is Pete. He cares a lot about the mechanics of these sort of card games. And as I know you're more into like the TCGs side of things, so you understand the importance of balancing and making sure that mechanics don't seem overpowered and they're also interesting at the same time. Yeah, I think this game, and like you mentioned about auto battlers, like I think this game has the potential for someone like me to really enjoy it because I haven't played a lot of auto battlers. I've played a little bit of kind of card games, so I think this could be like kind of a gateway game for me to be like, oh, auto battlers are pretty cool, and maybe I should try a few more. I know we reviewed Just King 2 a bit ago, and we weren't super crazy about that auto battling. But that was a bit different. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
with a deck builder sort of game, card game is it has a little bit more potential for us to like it. So yeah, I really everything about Throne of Bone that I saw looked pretty solid. But excited to check it out. Hopefully on the podcast at some point. And yeah, also just shout out to Pete for taking some time to do an interview with us. Always appreciate that. And also, I don't know if we mentioned it's a roguelike as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, so again, we've mentioned on the podcast previous weeks, that's gonna be a big trend, right? Is like adding roguelike features to your game, to whatever the base game is. We saw a ton of that at PAX,
Oh yeah.
and honestly, it hasn't felt stale yet. Like we're still kind of, I feel like, in the early stages of it. But yeah, Throne of Bone is definitely something I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah, and oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Something that before we go to the next game that was kind of cool talking to Pete, like, just like outside of the interview, was he was like, it's tough with auto battlers, but there's a gateway drug for that right now, and that's a Super Auto Pets, which is a mobile game that, and I think it might be on Steam as well, but people love that. And actually, I heard about that 2 years ago from my friend Will, who's like obsessed with that game. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that does make sense because I saw like the potential of someone being, really into it. And then he also said, and on top of that, card game roguelites, Balatro is doing wonders for that genre because it's like that's so accessible. People don't have to know about TCGs or anything like that. They just got to know poker, which most people know poker. And he's like, this could be, a really great time to get into that space. So it was really neat. But what was the next game?
Yeah, so for me, definitely another one of the favorites is a game called Juice, which, hey, fresh juice. That actually initially just drew me over to that booth, obviously, because they had some sick posters. Here's one of them right here if you're watching on YouTube. Very cool poster, hand drawn art by the dev Max. So shout out to Max. He had a few other variants of this as well. The studio's called Color Fiction, and yeah, he had a really interesting kind of story with Juice. So kind of starting from the beginning is he had originally worked on games that were really calming, really relaxing. He mentioned to me like a game of just kind of like hanging out in this, sort of like a boat, and just sort of just a relaxing, calming experience. And he grew his team. They had about like 15 devs, I think he mentioned. Unfortunately, their publisher made some cuts, and his games were kind of canceled from there. So out of kind of, I asked him sort of what is his motivation for Juice. I know I haven't mentioned what kind of game it is yet, and he mentioned it was a lot of anger, right? Obviously, after working with a larger team for an indie studio on something he was passionate about, there's a lot of anger coming out there after those cuts. And Juice is all about it is an FPS where you are a monster that is eating humans. So completely on the other side of the spectrum from the previous games that he had made. And really, the thing that draws me into this game is the art style. So he said he was inspired by Ren and Stimpy. So it's kind of got that hand drawn, weird, sort of cartoony, almost like fluid sort of art style. It does have a story mode in the game, but primarily at PAX is he built a month before PAX happened, or PAX was going on. He built an arcade mode where you had to eat or destroy 300 humans in the fastest amount of time. So he had a timer for this arcade mode. It's still super early. It seems like for Juice, there's a lot that he wants to do, but it was fun watching people compete for that. Just running around in this. It's a very like monotone sort of like world of like grays and blacks, but then there's kind of these bursts of color that happen as you're eating things, and you're running around this. It's not a procedural world, but it just kind of seems like it's a procedural world, but it's just kind of a bunch of different rooms, and it's not like crazy detailed. It's not like one of those sort of games, but I had a lot of fun playing it. It's deceivingly difficult. Some people, they were getting under 30 seconds. I saw someone get 24 seconds destroying 300 humans, which was, I believe, the best time of the whole weekend. I know we tried it. I was like at 2 minutes. Like it was just a very deceiving to have to get through that. So just want to give a shout out to Max at Color Fiction for Juice. I think it's a really cool game. It has potential, and thank you for doing an interview as well. But yeah, it's still early on. He wants to do more levels, more, different modes. And I'm interested in like, what is the story side of this game? I feel like the story could be like the strongest part of the game as well. Especially seeing like the motivation he had behind it. But yeah, Juice, obviously drew me in with the name, but, he was great. Probably my second most visited booth, I would say, behind Astro Duel, just because it was great talking with Max just about PAX. This is the first time he was showing this game too, so
Mm-hmm.
it's always cool to get a dev that's like, "Yeah, I've been working on this for 10 months, and this is the first time I'm showing it. I don't know what people are gonna think." And he said that the feedback has been fantastic throughout the entire weekend. So always cool to get that. But yeah, what did you think of Juice, Tom?
It was so cool. And I think Max was just, I mean, honestly, just a sweetheart. He was just like so nice to talk to. Like you could tell that he doesn't have the anger inside of him. And this is the only way it came out, right? Or if he does have it, that's how it came out, was in this game. And the game is very memorable. I think is the biggest takeaway for me, because I played some like, FPSs back in the day, and like this felt different. And I was like, man, I really want to see the final product of this, because
Yeah.
we played it was very early stages of this game, right? First time anybody's really been seeing it. And I'm like, oh, that was like a lot of fun. I was really bad at it. I thought I was off to a hot start. And then
Yeah.
it took me like 2.5 minutes, and this other people were taking 20 seconds. I'm like, what the heck? But it was so cool. I love the art, and I really want to see where it goes from there, because clearly there's a lot of passion there and a lot of talent. And I think that, where it goes, and like, even if it, like, I don't know where he plans on bringing it, right? Like, we don't know if the arcade mode might be the future, because that seemed to be what people really were like having a lot of fun with, or if it is the story mode, which has a lot of potential, or roguelike mode or something like that. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Like, you could do something really cool like that. And he was awesome. And yeah, I don't know, like it was, I like the challengey kind of stuff, right? And I was although that one, I realized very soon, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get close to beating this, like,
Yeah, same.
best record ever. Like, I don't think ever. Like, even if I like practiced. So that being said, that doesn't mean it's a bad game or anything like that. It's just really, really cool. So I don't know. I really like Juice. Obviously, the name too is really cool, and it's funny because the name doesn't tell you how violent the game is. Like, you're juicing all the humans. It's like pretty crazy, but it is. It was a good one. I really enjoyed it. I got a poster as well. I left it in Matt's car. He has it for me, so I'll be getting it soon. Hopefully, put it up on the wall somewhere behind the camera. But yeah, man. I mean, some great digital games. I just want to briefly shout out, because I guess we'll probably move on to like our game of the show here now. But I want to give a shout out to the tabletop stuff going on. It's not Unplugged, PAX Unplugged in Philly, where, I mean, that's an awesome convention too. If you like tabletop stuff, you should definitely check out PAX Unplugged. But PAX East always has some good tabletop board games, card games, etc. I want to give a shout out to Drop Drive, which is a really fun game by the developers of Dungeon Dive, I think it's called.
Dungeon Drop.
Dungeon Drop.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. We played the demo, and then I bought it, and we played it in the hotel room. It was a lot of fun. It's one of those games that like seems like it's going to be really complex, and then you play it and you're like, oh no, this is like a lot of fun and relatively easy. And it has a pretty clear path, like not to victory, but like to like what you want to do. It's still, you got competition with your other players here. And then I also played Goodknack, which is a cool living card game, which means like it will play similarly to a trading card game, but they're not gonna like do like new booster sets and stuff like that. They'll do expansions every once in a while, and there's not going to be a lot of collectability, but you play it with, just what you have. But it's kind of a cool thing. The box comes with 4 different factions. You choose a faction before you start playing, and you get to actually build your deck. You get to look at what cards are available. You can build a deck and present it, and then you and your opponent play based on some cool like almost like a grid style chess-y kind of gameplay, which was a lot of fun. And then finally Compile, which wasn't even out. They didn't even have copies to sell, but my cousin Dan and I we played, and it was like a really cool, like really quick card game, which was like a lot of fun. It's probably going to be in that kind of living card game space, but really just going to have like a little box. You just play. You're competing like evil AI that are like doing different kinds of things, and you got to pick different like factions, I guess, also to play as. And there's a lot of mind games and back and forth, and it was like quick and fun and really cool. I pre-ordered it on Amazon like right away. And then they also, as a Flesh and Blood player, they had a bunch of learn to play stuff going on at PAX, which is really cool. Love to see that. Hadn't really seen that at PAX in previous years. I think like the first year that Flesh and Blood was out, there was some stuff going on, but I didn't even know about Flesh and Blood at the time, and it wasn't really hanging out over there. But I did play a Super Armory, which was an event. I took it down 4-0. What's going on?
Yeah.
I'm the best player in the world, dude. But which was pretty cool, and I got like a really cool play mat and stuff like that. But any tabletop stuff that really stood out for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna just give a shout out to Thrive here. All right, so this is not something that was at PAX, but it's something that Tommy brought that he's been play testing for someone I don't
Sasha
know.
Markovic.
There it is.
Marco Victory on Twitter. Former Flesh and Blood dev, current Flesh and Blood pro, future Thrive, or current and future Thrive developer.
There you go. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed playing Thrive. It's a quick game. It's easy to understand, but it also has like a level of like strategy and complexity to it that keeps you interested, which is what I always look for with these sort of games. Like Compile was kind of the same thing. I was watching you guys play, where like I don't want a game. There's been games before that were just like, this is just too much, right? Like I thought Drop Drive was going to kind of be like that, like you mentioned, but it wasn't. And so finding that like perfect medium between like enough strategy to keep you interested, but also simple enough so that you just don't feel like it's droning on. I think Thrive nails that. I think Compile nailed that. Drop Drive was fantastic. Any other tabletop games that I played? Oh, there was also Binho.
Binho.
Binho. BIN with the little tilde, whatever on top. HO. So this is basically it's like flick soccer. You might have seen it on TikTok before. Not really like a board game, just kind of a tabletop sort of style game. And our cousin Dan played in a tournament for it, made it to the second round, which is awesome. But yeah, it's essentially, it's a small little board you have. You got some pegs in there that kind of act as the players in between each goal. You have a little kind of a little soccer sort of ball there, and you're just kind of flicking with your, you have one flick per player, kind of goes back and forth until you can get it into each other's goals. So that was a lot of fun. I always love those like moments of like hype that you find at PAX where like you're just walking by and everyone's like, oh, because like something crazy happens in like a game. So I had a lot of fun watching you guys play that. We also played Shape Invaders, which is another sort of flick style game. I don't know if that's a new trend that's happening with like flicking things in board game. Well, in board games, but tabletop flicking. But it was essentially, I played against Tommy. And it's imagine just like Space Invaders type pieces that you kind of flick back and forth off to each other, and you're trying to knock each other's pieces off the board. Basically, it was kind of this like cool black light effect that they had going with it. That's also a game that's not out yet. But yeah, no, I honestly I think like top of my list for the tabletop games was Drop Drive. I had a lot of fun playing it, even back at the hotel. It is like we had to play on the floor
Yeah.
because it's one of those games that like you kind of need a good amount of table space for. We didn't really have that in our hotel room, so just keep that in mind if anyone does pick up Drop Drive. Just one thing I also want to mention about Compile. Um, Great price point, $20 for a
Mm-hmm.
compile. I feel like that's a big thing with tabletop games is like I might have a lot of fun playing it, and it's like, oh, it's also like $65 or something. I'm just like, oh, like I get, I understand, it's probably expensive to make, but like that is not super accessible. So after playing compile and he's like, oh yeah, it's on Amazon, you can pre-order for $20. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I'm probably gonna end up pre-ordering it. I know you did like right away too
Yeah, I was
after
like,
he
this is
said that.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. Like when the game is like something that's hitting, and then the price is also something that's hitting. It's just like, yeah, I'm in. So yeah, really enjoyed that. There's also a few digital games I just want to shout out before we get into like the listener questions. Quamp 2, awesome game.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
sequel to the original game on Atari. Atari was at PAX, ladies and gentlemen. They've got had a
They have new
uh,
hardware.
yeah, they have new hardware.
What the heck?
Uh, they had like a few booths there. I don't know if that's. I assume that's like not indie now, but I don't know what it technically is. I don't know what Atari even is now. But Quamp 2 was fun. It's a very simple game, kind of a puzzle game that only need to use two buttons for. In Quamp 1, you only use one button so that you can see the evolution there. So that was fun. That was cool. Definitely recommend Quamp, QOMP 2. And then also Tape to Tape was another fun game. I feel like every year at PAX, we're due for like a hockey game
Yeah.
to be there. And Tape to Tape was, I know we talked about Goons before on the show, and that's kind of a more arcade Mario Party kind of style hockey game. This one wasn't as like serious. It's kind of in between Goons and like NHL games. Still has kind of a cartoony sort of vibe to it, but it was fun. It was a solid game. Looking forward to checking out some more of it. Yeah, it just overall it was good. I think it was like 5v5 hockey. Like it was definitely more players on there than I had kind of thought. Like in a lot of these other hockey games is kind of like 3v3 or kind of a smaller player pool there. Dragon is Dead, another cool game that is a oh god,
Metroidvania.
what do you Metroidvania?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was trying to remember what it was. I had a lot of fun playing that. Kind of had that kind of pixelated vibes to it. I had fun playing it. Rift Storm. I'm just throwing out games real quick right now because
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
we're just trying to get to the questions. Rift Storm was cool. It's kind of this like dungeon crawler, twin stick shooter sort of game. I thought it was pretty sweet. Had fun playing it. I played like a character that had a lot of turrets, so I just threw down a bunch of turrets and they kind of handled business for me. But yeah, honestly, I guess is it time to get into like game of the show? Tom, what was your
Yeah.
game of the show at PAX East 2024?
Game of the show was Gollum. No, no, that was last year. Game of the show for me is gonna be Astro Duel 2. I mean, it's just I know I'm gonna be playing it for a very long time. There were a lot of great games, but you know, Astro Duel kind of really blew my mind. As crazy as it is, it's like such a simple game in a lot of ways. But I was like, oh, this is doing something that I've never really seen, and if I've seen it, I've never seen it executed like this. So, got to give it to Astro Duel 2 because not only that, there's like a lot of thought into it, right? We talked about how good the game is, but when we were playing, we played like a map and there was just like a shark in like a tank in the middle of the map, and there's like whatever. It was like a new map, and we happened to break two things because the whole map is technically just like destructible, right? And we managed to break two like nodes or whatever, and all of a sudden the game like paused. And we're like, uh-oh, and then the shark breaks out of the tank and becomes a playable character, which is like, what the heck? That's so cool. So that means like a lot of the unlockables in the game like these little Easter eggs and stuff like that. And I kind of love stuff like that. Like I want to discover all of it. So that was really sweet. And yeah, like Astro Duel 2 was really easily my game of the show.
Yeah, same here. I'm going with Astro Duel 2. Like you mentioned, I just love the blending of genres and then also like the smoothness of the gameplay. When you're able to play like a party game like that solo and it's still a lot of fun, like it's working well. And then yeah, all the kind of mystery behind it, right? Like when I was playing earlier, I was like, how do I unlock this shark character? Because I know we did it. I need to figure out how we did it and then unlock it. So I love all that kind of secrecy with the game. Yeah, Astro Duel 2, if I can say it properly, is definitely my game of the show. But like you said, there's a lot of great games there, like a very strong showing. But if I had to choose one, it would definitely be Astro Duel 2. And it actually, I mean, are you interested in like checking out the first Astro Duel?
Yeah.
I know it's only the ship part, right? It's not like the Super Smash kind of part. It's mainly like asteroids, I think, from what they were saying. But I saw it was on Switch. It was $5 on sale, and I was like, maybe I gotta check out the first one.
I think like I probably might, I mean, there's a lot to explore with Astro Duel 2 currently. It's like,
Yeah,
and arguably everything, I would assume that they would want us, the players, to like really dive into the new game they made, but it
yeah,
would be something I would look at, especially if it's on sale. Money is on sale actually. But hey, actually, I do want to ask you one question before we get to the questions here. What'd you think of Animal Well? Because I saw you playing it, and that's something we kind of talked about last week that I mentioned I played at PAX last year. Kind of like the comparison to a relaxing vibe, kind of platformer / Metroidvania that, was a little bit different than like Rebel Transmute, which we played last week.
I played Animal Well kind of towards the end of the show. I just saw like an open spot for it, so hopped on there, and I enjoyed it. Like it was definitely something different. Like it was I would a bit more relaxing, but also just interesting mechanics with at least the part I played is like you pick up these firecrackers and trying to figure out like, okay, there are certain enemies that kind of come right after you. Like, how do I use a firecracker against them? Tried to throw it at them, didn't really work, but you have to just like have it land near them, and then once it goes off, it kind of dissipates the enemy. So I thought that was really cool. It is a very kind of dark game, and they focus a lot on hidden areas and like the kind of mystery around that. So I thought that was a really cool idea of just like kind of reminded me of like Dead Cells a bit, where like a lot of the hidden rooms in Dead Cells. But this kind of amped it up even a bit more. Like even to progress through the game, you have to find hidden rooms, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, overall, I mean, I didn't play a ton of it. I think I maybe played like 15 minutes of it. But I did enjoy my time with Animal Well, and like I'm curious to see, kind of what the reaction is once it launches, because I don't think it's technically out yet. I think it comes out in May.
Mm-hmm.
So curious to see what the reaction is there. But yeah, I thought it had potential and definitely had a different vibe than other like Metroidvanias that I've played. So yeah, enjoyed it quite a bit.
Perhaps we
And,
will review it. We will
yeah,
see.
yeah, well, we shall see. Also, I just threw this here in the show notes as well of like what would we like to see more of at PAX for next year. It's May 8th to the 11th, so if anyone's thinking of getting some tickets or maybe book that hotel room soon, you can meet up with us and we can hang. But what would you like to see more of at PAX, since it seems to be like an ever evolving sort of convention?
um, this is tough, right? Like, the easy answer: more indie games.
Yeah.
More tournaments. Like I love like a little like community tournament, like kind of out of the blue. Um, I wonder if there's a better. I always wonder if there's a better way to organize it, especially now that less AAA's are showing up. Like, can we organize it by? Like, I understand they want like the really big things up front, right? Like the Mountain Dew thing, and then Baldur's Gate 3 for whatever reason, up front, and Atari was up front and stuff like that. Toxic Crusaders, which is huge apparently, and I always wondered though if beyond that we can get it organized by genre, right? That would be really neat. Like, hey, this is the local multiplayer room, right, or whatever section. This is the Metroidvania room. Here's the miscellaneous room. Like, you'll get all the kind of crazy stuff over there. I think that would be a pretty neat thing, like in terms of like how to like run the show. Always down for more Metroidvanias. I'm always looking for a really good one to really dive into. And then next year, I mean, is Hades 2 already going to be out? But it'd be kind of cool to see a big Hades booth. Perhaps Hollow Knight, Silksong booth. I always forget the release dates on these, but that could be a huge thing. But how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of your points there, and it was something that we were even talking about at PAX. Is like, I don't see a reason for any. It doesn't even need to be like a party kind of game, like any sort of indie game, to not have like a daily tournament or even multiple tournaments, right? You can just give away like a $10 Steam gift. Like, people don't really care what the prize is, right?
Yeah,
They just want to compete at
they want
PAX.
to win. Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, like like our cousin Dan was playing that flick soccer game. We didn't even really know what the prize was, like what for that. It's just a lot of fun to do, and it gets a lot of engagement. And like I said, earlier, I love those moments of like when people are like, oh, like everyone's like freaking out because something crazy happened in a game. Like, I just think, like I think back at like when we played, or when you guys played Kung Fu Kickball in that tournament on, like, was it like on the arcade machine? Did they have it
No, we
there?
played on regular.
Oh, on the
Yeah.
screen. Okay, regular TV. But that was awesome. That was hype. Like, I would love to see, like a tournament schedule for like all these sort of games, so that maybe you could even like, you go into PAX and there's just a sign there of like, here's the tournaments. This game has tournaments at this time, this time, and this time, and then we could be like, all right, let's come back at 6 for this one. I know there is a tournament schedule, but it's not always for the indie games. It's usually like in other rooms, where maybe there's like a Smash tournament, these kind of bigger named games. So I think that would be great. And then also, like, I like the idea of organizing it better, because God knows it is confusing sometimes. Being like, I saw this booth here, I don't know where it went. Like, did it move? Like, I have no idea. So it can definitely be confusing at times. And honestly, I would like for like the panels to be maybe a little bit more integrated into like what is on the show floor. Like, it could be really cool to be like, all right, like what if there was like a party game panel, right? That
Yeah.
had the Fraymakers guys, it had Astro Duel, like it just had them up there, and you could just ask questions. They could showcase their games. Like, I think that would be a really cool panel, or even like, talking with Max from Juice about like his journey from being in a development studio to being a solo dev, working on a game that's completely opposite. Like, I just think there's a lot of insights with these indie devs, and I know there are panels for indie devs. It just seems like they might be a little disconnected from like what's being shown on the floor. I know the devs kind of have to stay at their booths as well throughout the show, so it might be hard to do a panel, but I still think it's possible, that sort of stuff could happen. Because there's a lot of games there. Like, looking through the panel list, I'm like, not super interested in like a lot of this stuff. We went to one of the panels for kind of funny, but I would love, to just have like some of the booths there kind of also have a panel. But anyway, yeah. Overall, though, I'm fine with PAX being more and more indie every year, if that's what's going to happen. I think Nintendo will always have representation there, because they are like an indie platform. Like,
Yeah.
they do really well with indie games as well as AAA. I think like PlayStation and Xbox a little bit less so. Maybe PlayStation's probably in last there, because Xbox at least has Game Pass, where there's a lot of indies. But yeah, so I would like to see. I'd like to see more indies, but I also would like to see Nintendo maybe have like a cooler presence there. If I,
Yeah.
like they had the Pokemon Play Lab, like I remember last year, not to like rant about this, but they had Tears of the Kingdom. They had like a big statue for it as you walked
Oh
in,
yeah,
but then there was nothing for Tears of the Kingdom at all in
yeah,
the like I was like, "Oh, we're going to be able to play it." No, you couldn't. So, I would just like for Nintendo to do cooler stuff there. I don't
yeah.
know. But anyway, yeah, so I think those would be I guess my suggestions. If anyone from the PAX crew is listening, the business, hopefully you guys listen to some of those suggestions. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'll stop droning on now.
No, no. Well, next year, May 8th to the 11th, that's a great time to really showcase the new Switch, Nintendo, if you
Yeah.
wanted to. Gosh, I mean, the indie games would be delighted. And so would the,
Yeah.
the players. That's such a great idea. Now, we do have listener questions. They are submitted on the Fresh Juice Discord or by the person I live with, typically. But the first one comes from Capolo, who had a weekend in LA at the Pro Tour LA. He played the calling and stuff like that. I'm sorry it didn't go so well, Capolo, but you're still a winner in my heart. Who he asks, what's your favorite non-gaming related thing you liked at PAX East?
Ooh, good question. So I was trying to think about this, and I feel like there's like two things I'm on right now. First thing is Dunkin' Donuts had a booth there, and they were just giving away $5 gift cards.
Free
So I
money.
got free money, and I just got two of them. But we could have just kept circling around and just taking it, wearing a mustache, putting a hoodie up, whatever it is, taking it. But so that was great. I like getting free money. And then probably the other thing I was thinking of is like they have great Italian ices there. I got two mango ones, and it's like $8 for an icy or whatever Italian ice. But honestly, like getting one of those, walking around PAX, like it's awesome. You're like, oh man, my mouth is happy, my eyes are happy, everything's happy here. So yeah, I'd go with the Italian ices and the Dunkin' gift cards. But what about you, Tom?
Uh, well, I'm glad your mouth's happy, buddy. Um, it's tough. Like, the Dunkin' gift cards are pretty cool. I'm thinking outside the convention, let's be honest. But if I had to pick something at the convention, I always like the food trucks, although it was freezing out this time. But I always go for the chicken and rice truck. You get the most value. You get sure, you're going to spend too much money for the food anyway, but you might as well get your as much bang for your buck as possible. And it's pretty good. So enjoy that. But on Saturday, we went into Boston, which was rainy, but whatever. We went to the North End Market. We all got some different food, which is good. But the highlight had to be Mike's Pastry. We went, we got cannolis, the best cannoli I've ever had. Easily. I've had some good cannolis in my life, I swear. And, second place, not even close to how good this was. It was incredible. I want to go back, actually.
Yeah.
More often. But, great question, Cap.
They were so good that our cousin Dan got four of them right out of the gate. Did not know how big they were going to
Yeah,
be.
he was
But
like, they gotta be small, right?
they were delicious, though. Absolutely.
Next question comes from Bags. We missed you this weekend, Bags. He asks, favorite indie game protagonist?
Whew. Let's see. I love Cuphead. Right, this first one popped in my head. Cuphead's a cool one. Trying to think of like maybe something like story driven. What about you, Tom? You got anything off the top of your head?
So, I think about The Beheaded, right, from Dead Cells. That one comes to mind. In Loop Hero, the main character is called the hero, right? Kind of this person who has amnesia and is trying to remember things and remember the world. That's basically what the whole game's about. Mm-hmm. You're placing the world back into his memory. And I think that's really awesome. But I think back to a game called Slain Back from Hell, which is I don't know if you'd consider it a Metroidvania. I guess it is in a way. It's a heavy metal themed, like dark medieval, like Metroidvania kind of, I guess, Castlevania. Yeah, I guess it's pretty Castlevania esque. Metroidvania. We'll call it a Metroidvania. Which is super cool. You got this like really cool like heavy metal playing in the background. It's not my style of music, but when I'm playing like a game like that, I'm all in, right? And the main character from that is Batharin, and so cool when you beat a level. He like slams his sword into the ground and just starts headbanging, like swinging his hair around. I mean, it's just so cool. I love that game. I always forget about it, but when I played it when it came out, I was like, this game is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you playing that. I don't know why I never played it. I actually think I have it on Switch. I
Mm.
need to play some more of it. I think I picked it up when it was on sale.
It's tough. It's a
Um,
hard game, but
yeah,
it's very rewarding.
yeah. Also, I just looked up like a list of like the top indie game protagonists, and Putt Putt's on here.
Putt
I
putt,
got.
no
I mean,
way,
I guess Putt Putt has got to be number one in everybody's hearts, right? Or
no
Pajama
way. Yeah,
Sam.
give me Pajama Sam for 500,
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So there you go, a little '90s throwback there.
That's a great. I have those on my phone. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
you can just get them on your phone now. Those games are awesome. Next question comes from K Moore, who asked, "What video game logic do you always do to make it harder? You can't say you look behind every waterfall for secrets." And he also adds that mine is do the Konami code in nearly every game just to see if the devs put it in, even if it's not a Konami game. For those of you who don't know, the Konami code is the left, left, right, right, up, down, A, B, A, B. I don't
Yep.
remember the actual code.
Helldivers as a
Yeah.
Helldivers stratagem. Uh, but for me, uh, probably it's just like if I'm ever given like two directions to go in a game, I will choose the direction that I think is not the main way to go, like always, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, I mean, it's kind of like the waterfall thing. I know it said don't do that, but like, it truly is just like, you know, I'm like, all right, that's probably like going to continue the story. I want to go over here and see if there's any secrets, see if there's any treasures, see what else is going on. And honestly, when I played Elden Ring, that really started to screw with me because there are you'll find like cave systems that just keep going. There's like hidden walls. You like hit a wall, it'll disappear, and then all of a sudden there'll be like a whole nother part of the cave. So you need to try to remember like where did I first turn away from like the main part? Because I need to try to backtrack. So probably that, or even like something that Maria brought up is she brought this up when I was playing Link's Awakening on the Switch. Is there'd be certain sounds that would happen, and she'd be like, and I would do something, and she'd be like, "Well, how did you know how to do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, because like you didn't hear like the little jingle or whatever, or like something, So like I guess listening to like little audio cues is like something I'm always kind of looking for especially in games like Zelda games or anything that's like an adventure game, always looking for those like audio cues to be like, oh, I have to do this or that was the wrong move. Like let me switch that up. So I guess those would be kind of the two things that I always do, but I'm sure there's some stuff that I don't realize I'm doing that I do all the time. What about you?
Mine is no matter the racing game, whether it's Mario Kart or not, if it looks like a shortcut, I'm going to try it out at least once. And if it doesn't work the first time, I will oftentimes try it again just in case. This also goes for like train cart levels in like Donkey Kong Country or something like that. If it looks like it's a shorter way to go, I'm going to try to do it. Just I don't want to I want to be the fastest. I want to get there the quickest. So, that's just something I do. I can't help it. Like it's my favorite thing to pull off, especially the harder ones. I think it was like Yoshi Island on Double Dash, which like had a really hard one to hit, like off the side into the water. Like there's a tunnel. It was hard to hit, but if you hit it, like you were cooking with gas, and like
Yeah.
that is my favorite thing to do in some video games. So.
Yep.
That's a great question, K Moore. Now, finally, rcarp11 asks, do you prefer multiplayer games locally or online?
Oh, so for me, It really depends on the type of game it is, right? Like, there's something nice about having that like couch kind of party game, right? Where like Astro Duel we were just talking about. Like I was just playing it solo, and I still had a great time. But even if I played that online, if I was like not talking with people online, I wouldn't have like the same experience as we had at PAX, or if I was like talking with people online. So but then there's other, on the online side of things, like it's obviously the convenience of being able to play online. But unfortunately, a lot of these indie games, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the indie games, they just don't have the budget to like build servers or however that works technically, to spin up some servers for like online play, especially if they don't have like a huge player base that's going to be even using those servers. So it doesn't make sense a lot of the time for them to do that. But I guess I would say like overall, I probably play more online games than like local multiplayer games, just because I'm not like in a frat house with like a bunch of like whatever like I just don't have a lot of people locally that are going to be playing. But I do love getting together with the boys and playing some local multiplayer games. Absolutely brings me back to the old GameCube days. So yeah, I love both, but I guess I would just have to go with online because I probably just played more of that than I used to. What about you?
Yeah, I'm locally. I'm like locally all the way. I think that's when I have the most fun. Like, yeah, I mean, I play some online games and it's fun. Like maybe hop on Discord or whatever, and that's awesome. And during COVID, like it was kind of lifeblood for like myself and like a lot of people. But in general, like I want to play a game on the couch with people. I think that's so much more fun. Like just a lot more fun, and it just adds to the human aspect, which I always like. And I just think that it just enhances the experience enough where you're like, you remember when you did that? Oh, you remember
Yeah.
we were experiencing all weekend, right? With a bunch of stuff. Like, oh, remember when the two guys were both the drill ship and they kept going, and you're
Yeah.
like, like that is like so much fun. But yeah. But thank you for the question, RCarp11.
Yeah.
See you later. That brings us to the rec room, where we recommend something that perhaps isn't an indie game. What do you have to recommend today?
Honestly, I didn't even prepare anything. I was just gonna say Astro Duel 2. Just play it because it's just awesome. So pick it up, join the Discord, let us know you got it, and we'll start running some games. But that's gonna be my rec room because obviously spent a lot of time just at PAX. But curious to know, is it a cannoli for you, Tom? Is that what it is? Mike's pastry?
I would like to. Let me look back in our notes here to see what I've like recommended before. The Bellatro Double Helix run by Northern Lion. That was fun. We watched a lot. Stephen A. clips. Okay, so I have a song that I want people to listen to. If you like F-Zero, you might like this song. It is called Noodles by Shrezzers. Shrezzers. I don't know if I recommended it on the show already, but the song is the band is pretty cool. They're kind of like this like post-punk hardcore, almost like A Day to Remember, but like they have a sax player, and that's why I'm into them. My buddy Dagan White, shout out Dagan White, aka the MetaZoo Killer, recommended it to me, and I've been bopping to it, so check that out. But
Oh yeah.
that's going to do for the show, folks. You can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod, where I have a podcast called Fresh and Buds, where I talk about an indie game called Flesh and Blood. We mentioned it on the show. They had Learn to Play events at PAX. It's a weekly show just like this one. And follow us on all other social medias at Fresh Juice Pod, anywhere, everywhere, all at once. Maddie, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me at Matty Gorm, Gorm, on all the socials. I've been trying to be as active as possible on the Fresh Juice Pod, Twitter, and all that stuff. So definitely follow us over there. And yeah, that's about it. Another great PAX in the books. And it's also awesome, just want to say, like, to be able to like recap our experience at PAX for like the first time, really, like,
Mm-hmm.
through the pod. So excited to do that for future years to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all for listening, and see you next week. We're going to be talking about Pepper Grinder. Ooh, lordy. Stay fresh, you juice heads. See ya.